Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to Real Inspection Services. This is your host, Chuck Ryan, here to discuss all things regarding your home and the home inspection industry. Hi, welcome back to Real Inspection Services podcast. I'm your host, Chuck Ryan. So last week we talked about newer homes, and this week I'm going to touch a little bit and go into what it's like to purchase a condo or a townhome and what the differences are between the two. I will talk a little bit about co-ops. Those are a little bit more of a challenge. So I will briefly discuss what a co-op is so you have an idea if that is something you may want to look into. So first off, you want to look at a condominium. And again, I will give you the difference between a condominium and a townhome. Some of the features that come with condos are the same as a townhome. Basically, when you're buying a condominium, you're buying into a community. You're sharing costs. There comes with a condominium, it's called an HOA, which is a homeowners association. There are assessment fees that come with condominiums, and I'll tell you the pros and cons with each. An HOA is the group that monitors what goes on with inside the condominium, and that's just something to kind of keep in mind. So an HOA is a homeowners association. So you're looking at a condominium, and what type of condominium do you want? Do you want a walk-up condominium, meaning that there's no elevators, you just walk in, you might go up 3 or 4 flights of stairs to get into the unit? Do you want an elevator building? Are you looking at a secured building that has a doorman, that has a pool, workout equipment in it? Those are some of the things you need to look at. With condominium high-rises, typically most of them will have a 24-hour doorman, and they may have a parking service that comes with that. Those come with costs. So what you're going to want to do is find out what the monthly costs are with the HOA. And those are costs that are on top of what your mortgage is. So just to give you an example, if you're looking at a high-rise that has a 24-hour doorman service, that has garage parking, that has an attendant, that even has a rooftop pool or a pool somewhere in the building. So you're going to want to look at those costs to make sure that that fits into your budget. And if it doesn't, there are other condominiums that are cheaper, that do have cheaper HOAs. You just have to figure out what that is going to be able to fit into your budget. So when you're looking at a high-rise, you're going to want to find out if there's any special assessments. And a special assessment is cost to fix things that are outside the condominium unit that you're looking at. It could be anything with the structure on the outside facade of the building. It could be roof-related. It might even be something that if there's a pool, that it could be related to the pool. It could be related to the HVAC equipment, which is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So those are some of the things that you're going to want to look into. If there are special assessments while you're looking at purchasing that unit, typically the homeowner will take care of those special assessments. So do your due diligence. Have your agent look into that. The attorney that is representing you can look into that as well. You just want to make sure you're not going in blindsided and then you're in there and then a month later you're hit with a special assessment and you're like, hey, where did this come from? So do your due diligence. A special assessment are things that can be added to a cost that if the HOA doesn't have that money set aside to repair those costs, basically you would be paying a percentage of what that special assessment is. Okay, so the other thing to kind of keep in mind is when can you move in? Most of the HOAs allow for move-in dates typically would fall on a Saturday. The other thing we can talk about too are condominiums that are mid-rise, meaning that they're not any higher than, let's say, 4 or 6 stories. They may not have an elevator in the building, so you want to kind of keep that in mind when you're moving your furniture in. You're most likely going to be taking stairs, so unless you have some good friends that want to lug that furniture in, you might want to consider a good moving company to help you with moving into your condo. So smaller condominiums do have homeowners associations. They generally are pretty much internally managed, meaning that there's not a management company that manages the property. Most of your high-rises will have management companies that you'll be dealing with. So if you need something repaired, you'll have to go to the management company to have those things taken care of. There are certain things that are covered by the HOA. On most high-rises, everything that's in your interior section of your home, you're responsible for. Windows might be part of the homeowners association. Plumbing might be part of the homeowners association. There's certain things that they may cover. So you just want to, again, take a look into that and find out what is it that's going to be your responsibility as a homeowner versus what the homeowners association takes care of. And then what do you have to do to go through the management or the manager that manages that property to get those things fixed. Most high-rises will have building engineers that can take care of some of the issues that can come up in your condo unit. So if you're looking at a smaller walk-up building, again, most of the homeowners associations generally don't have management companies. It's all done internally. That can be kind of a drag because you can have a vote to get certain things done, and if not everybody is on board to get those things fixed or approved, it can be a delay to have things repaired, such as the roof. You have to have everyone's approval to make sure that things get done. And it's voted on, and basically it's the majority rules. On some of the smaller condominiums, you're going to want to just take a look at the exterior of the building to see how well it's been maintained, to make sure that everything looks like it's in good shape. I can tell you that over the years when I've done inspections on some of these smaller condominiums, the outside is just in really bad shape, that it doesn't matter how nice the condo unit is. These are costs that we will always let the buyer know that these are real costs that could come up. And if the homeowner association doesn't have money set aside to take care of these repairs, guess what? You're going to be writing a check for those repairs. So again, on these smaller condominiums, find out what they do have in their reserves. That's important. If they don't have a lot of money in the reserves, just be aware that any type of costs that come up, you will be writing a check out to take care of those repairs. You want to check to make sure that they do have a healthy reserve. And a reserve is, again, money that's been set aside for unexpected costs that can come up. Reserves will increase yearly. On smaller units, it may not be as that much. So if you're looking at a condominium that has a duplex and the bedrooms are in the basement, I highly suggest that you get a radon test done. So just keep that in mind. And just because the condo is in Chicago, the old wives' tale is that radon isn't prevalent in Chicago or in the city, and that's completely not true. Radon is everywhere in a home, and because your sleep area or your bedrooms are located in the basement, that's one of the reasons you should just make sure you do not have unsafe or elevated levels of radon inside your home. So the other thing you can also ask is, again, with high rises as well as walk-up or mid-rise buildings over the year, has there been any projects within the last 3 to 5 years, meaning has anything been updated? Has there been a new roof installed? On some of the lower walk-ups, they may have had some old decks that may have had to have been replaced or repaired. Replacing and repairing are kind of totally two different words. Replace means they would have torn it down and put a new one up, and repairing it would have been that they have gone out there and just repaired certain sections of the deck. So I didn't talk yet about the difference between condos and townhomes. Townhomes are a little bit different. They do have HOAs, but their HOAs are different in the sense that the elements may be found within or outside the individual unit. Townhome, sometimes condominiums have limited common areas, but most of this kind of, when I talk about townhomes, the term would be considered limited, meaning that anything outside the unit, they'll take care of the landscaping, mowing the lawns, removal of snow, garbage services. They call it scavenger services or garbage services. Those are things that are taken care of by the HOA. Anything outside the unit, roofs most likely fall into that category. Windows on townhomes, chances are it might be the homeowner's responsibility. It's not to say that high-rises or walk-up condos, the HOA doesn't take care of the windows. Sometimes it can fall on the unit owner, but most of the times on the high-rises and some of these walk-ups, the windows are pretty much the responsibility of the HOA. So again, it's something to look into because windows are very expensive to get replaced. So that's one of the things you'll want to make sure when you're looking at those. Again, I probably should have talked about that earlier, is what is the quality of the windows? Are they drafty? When you're in a high-rise, do you hear wind coming in? Do your due diligence and just ask. Ask those questions. What's the difference between an HOA and what is the difference between owner's responsibility and what are the limitations? So that's what I'm kind of talking about when I say limited. Especially if there's a garage with a townhome, you're responsible for all repairs in the garage. Overhead door, making sure that everything works and is functional. The HOA won't take care of that. Now, if it's things that are on a facade part, if it's masonry or roof, typically the townhome HOA will take care of those items. But again, just make sure you clarify that. Townhome HOAs are typically a little bit less expensive. So it's just, again, what your preference and what your budget is. And usually those high-rises do have higher HOA fees because there is more involved with that. So we talked about condominiums and we talked about townhomes. In the beginning, I did say I was going to share a little bit information on what a co-op is. Basically, a condo owner owns a unit. The co-op owner does not own the unit. Co-ops are generally collectively owned and they're managed by the residents. They own basic shares in a nonprofit corporation, which holds the title to the property, and it grants proprietary leases to the residents. So not to go too much into that, you're just going to have to see if a co-op is something that you want to have that type of a lifestyle versus owning a piece of property. When you own a condo, you own it. A co-op is basically you're kind of buying shares and it's collectively shared with everybody else in that property. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you need further information on that, you could talk to your agent about the difference between a co-op and a condo. All right, so you invest into a condo, you've lived there after a couple of years, and you want to rent it. One of the things you'll have to check, and you should probably check this before if that's your goal, is to live into the condominium, and let's say you want to upgrade and move into a home, and you still want to keep the condominium as an investment and rent. Some homeowners associations will have a cap. So let's just take an example. If it's an 8-unit building, they may not allow more than 4 units to be used as rental. So it's just something to keep in mind. Also, if you do decide to go that way and rent out to someone, you want to do your due diligence on that person that's going to be living in that condominium. You can also hire a real estate agent to help you with that process. So just remember, you just want to make sure if you want to be a landlord. And a landlord is basically you are making sure that property that you purchased, and you could rent homes too. That's, again, a little bit different. You obviously don't have to go about getting an approval, but being a landlord, it's not easy, and you have to have the wherewithal to understand that tenant's going to call you for a repair. You're going to have to go out there and do the repair. Is that something you want to do? And again, make sure you do your due diligence that you're getting a good tenant in there, because a good tenant is the key thing for having a good, profitable rental property. So next week, I am super excited. I'm going to be talking with Guy Grimaldi with First Community Mortgage. He is super knowledgeable, and I'm super excited to have him as a guest. So thanks again for tuning in, and remember, it's better to be proactive than reactive. Thank you again for tuning in to Real Inspection Services Podcast. If you have any questions regarding your home or our services, please reach out to us at realinspectionservices.com. If you would like us to answer any of your questions on the podcast, send us a DM on Instagram at Real Inspection Services. All info is down below in the show notes.